listeners, Byron here. Tune in to Renee sharing experiences from her professional journey and development. And again, thanks for tuning in to gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be insightful in technology.
So you're sharing for the benefit of others and all of that,
Yeah,
because that still speaks true to what you already do.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right, I do want to take it back a bit
Hmm.
and let's talk about your school
Mm,
journey and the
hmm.
experience that you went through with. I know you mentioned Spelman and
Right.
you mentioned Mercer. I wanna talk about your
Sure,
degrees that you
sure,
got because it's not very often I see someone with a double bachelor, so I do want to talk about it.
sure. Yes. My again saying yes and being open to others. I'm really big on a bought lesson is what is it? What's it? A bought lesson is better than a earned one. I just botched that, but essentially, I do believe in listening to those who have forged the way. I don't feel like I have to be the one to knock down the door. If you say, if I trust your wisdom, I listen to you a lot. So that particular person I'm referring to is my mother. So I wanted to be an attorney.
Oh, really?
And she said, nah, you need to be an engineer. You're good at math. You don't like to write. I was just like, okay, what is an engineer? Here I am dating myself again
Mhm.
because I didn't know what an engineer was. So I went to this thing called an encyclopedia. We had a bookshelf, a full set of the Britannica encyclopedias. I went to the E's and I opened it up and it had mechanical engineer. And I was like, no, I don't think I like that. And the one that spoke to me was computer engineer. I was like, oh, okay, well, let me do that. No, I'm sorry, electrical.
Ooh.
Electrical is what spoke to me because you worked on computers. So computer engineers wasn't a title then. I'm really sounding like an old person. Anyway, so electrical, in the description for electrical engineers, they said that they worked on computers. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And so that's how I decided to become to study computer engineering. I applied to Spelman, got in, and I was like, all right, I'm done. So Spelman was the only school I applied to. They had the dual degree program. I said, okay, cool, I'll do Spelman and then go on to Georgia Tech and get an electrical engineer. So natural science at Spelman and Georgia Tech electrical engineering. And I did that. I worked for a few years and then again, bored and said, I guess I'll go get a master's. I guess it's time. And so I went on and got my master's in engineering, technical communication engineering from Mercer. And all of this is in Atlanta. So I have a strong affinity for Atlanta. I think Atlanta has everything that I need. And since we're busting out the seams, apparently it has everything others need as well. So don't talk about me for never leaving. But I also, because of that global early work, I was always traveling. So I like to think that I'm pretty well exposed, not just through work, but also my family. So I did a lot of traveling internationally for pleasure as I grew up. So I like to think of myself being pretty open to other cultures and what have you. Also, and then I always take classes. I did it after getting my master's. I took a lot of certification. I was designing websites, but I went on and got a certification in website design from Georgia Tech afterwards. I was already doing digital marketing, working for Delta Airlines, and I went on and went to, what is that place? Oh gosh, is that what is that place called? General Assembly. I went on and got a certificate in digital marketing from General Assembly. I just like being that arena of education. I like being the arena of people who are thinking and innovating and ideas. So I'm getting bored again, and I'm actually thinking about going back and getting my PhD in engineering. And so I'm this close to figuring out where. And I did identify a school, but it's inside of their computer science department. And I don't want it from a computer science department. I want it from an engineering Department of Engineering, PhD. So it's either going to, there's really, actually, it's going to be a doctorate in engineering, not a PhD. So I've identified a couple of schools that fit that requirement. And so I'm thinking about it, but only because I'm getting a little bored. And also, just the conversations. So let me say this, in my working closely with Spelman, and I'm seeing the young ladies matriculate, it excites me, but I also want them to understand what they're going into. And then as I'm talking to them about what they're going into, because I say yes to a lot of things and opportunities, I don't really realize what arena I'm in. I never thought about the fact that the numbers, a percentage. I know we're not everywhere, Black women engineers. I know that we're rare, but I didn't realize how rare we were until I started talking to the young ladies. And, now data is everything, right? And so it's like, okay, let me tell you how rare you are. And it's like, whoa, 16%. Like, and that is 16% of minorities, of Blacks. Engineers are only 16%. Black women and who are earning their bachelor's, just bachelor's in engineering, is only 1%. And so, yeah, I looked that up for in preparation for this. But yeah, so when you're saying that, it's like, wow, we're just unicorns. And there's some other things I want to say, but I'm gonna keep it classy for you. But we're just so unique, and I just love that. And one of the things that fuel Renee is you tell her you can't do something, and then you just may as well just sit back and watch me do it. And so knowing that we're in places and spaces that we're just not expected to be excites me. But it's also about helping them understand getting there. Again, I told you, I just looked at an encyclopedia and was like, okay, I'll become an electrical engineer. And that happened. And so because it happened, I won't say seamlessly, but because I did the thing, you can easily undermine how unique that is, right? And so when I'm talking to the young ladies and telling them that, I want them to understand, yeah, getting it is one thing, but sustaining it is another. And so I really and truly want more conversations around that, because I know the numbers are low, but it's like, okay, yeah, we can get it. But I want them to understand what's happening here, because I didn't understand what was happening. Like I said, I was getting bored. I shouldn't have been bored. I should have been like, okay, let's shake this up. Let's do some things around. I should have been looking at it like, how can I innovate within where we are? If I was bored, then bring some innovation to it, make it not boring, Renee. But I was like, okay, I'm out. On to the next thing that excites me. And so instead of looking for that looking for that external stimulation, I should have been bringing the stimulation to the environment and really shaking things up. But I loved it. Being an engineer has put me into so many unique spaces. And it's crazy because the things that I've experienced, I never really talked about it, because again, as it was happening, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to work and about to go sit inside of a space shuttle, a NASA space shuttle, and I will come home and not talk about it. It was like, okay, yeah, I did that.
Just like you just did something
Really?
cool for the day, and it's just like
Exactly. And it's crazy because now I talked about it on my social media about a few years ago, and I had an uncle to say, "You making that up?" And I was like, "Are you serious right now?" And so I dug through the archives and I found a picture of me actually standing next to some NASA astronauts in Florida and by the space station. And with not the space station, yeah, the international, was it the International Space Station? So ISS. So it was obviously not in orbit at the time, but there are pieces of it. It would go up in pieces. And so we were talking about what was going to happen and what they were going to do. And I found pictures of me on the steps going into the shuttle. I never went up in space. I will never say that. I am not Mae Jemison, okay? But I have been inside, and it's because of my affiliation with Society of Women Engineers. And so I was there through an affiliation with them through the Atlanta Urban League. Again, I was working with middle schoolers, teaching them technology, and on the weekends. And the person who was over that project was like, Renee, I want you to go to Cocoa Beach and with the Society of Women Engineers. And I was young and silly. And I said, okay. And so I went, and that happened. And I came home and I pet my dog and watered the plants, went on with my life. And it's just until now I'm looking back like, wow, you had some interesting interactions. And some people don't even believe that they're actually true. And thank God for the Polaroid picture to prove it.
Do you have trouble celebrating your success? Is it like you reached a milestone, you reached a goal, on to the next one?
I think I did as a younger person because again, you're just matriculating, you're going through it. I did not have anyone going, Renee, whispering in my ear, Renee, you did the thing. It was like, I was expected to go on to school. What are you going to study? My mother told me to study engineering, so I studied engineering. And then I interviewed right after college. I interviewed, got hired. They said, go to Europe. I went to Europe. And so it's always just being told to go here and being open to the next step. And so I did not celebrate during that time because I was just doing what I was told. I didn't feel like I wasn't aware of the rarity of what was happening. If you say yes, you too can be in a space shuttle. I guess that's what I thought. I don't know. I don't know. But I know that education is an equalizer. It allowed me to ebb and flow into corporate, and I get bored and I could come out of it. But because I had a talent, when people hear you're an engineer, they automatically go, oh, well, you're smart. So you can do this. You can solve this problem of mine. And it's like, okay, well, let me think about it and figure it out because I will never say yes to a project that I can't. Again, I'm not going to waste your time and money and say yes. And I was like, oh, well, okay, let's sit down. And so I love the fact that I have the muscle to look at something from a high level and reverse engineer it backwards to say, okay, in order for you to get there, let's take these steps. So figure out these milestones you need to hit. Who do we need to hit for them to understand it, be aware of it? And I just know that that's because of not only my education, but I'm very grateful for my education and my acumen because it is, again, I never go out selling myself. And people hear that and there's like, okay, I need you. I've had people who want me on their project just because of the resume. When they're submitting a contract, they want to be able to say, I'm on their team. And so there's that benefit. So I strongly encourage others the young ladies I talk to just be open and to always keep themselves around people who are going to help them. Don't get so arrogant. Again, I got bored, but I was never arrogant in saying yes to an opportunity, except for when they said, go to Houston. I was like, I'm not going to Houston to live in an apartment. I'm trying to buy a house. So you could put me in a house and then I'll go. But then I also said yes, immediately left them and without missing a beat, went over to Scientific Atlanta.
So with the girls that you do help and plenty
Mhm.
more, the sustainability piece that you talked about,
Mhm.
where you went through it and you're just like, you just
Yeah.
say yes to anything, but when they came back to you with like the information, it's just like it's not that many of us out there. How did you handle
Mhm.
it? Like how do you help them throughout and breaking in and staying in?
So breaking into being an engineer, so a part of the reason I do want to go back to school is to validate a project I'm thinking about in regards to developing a STEM grooming, if you want to call it that, finishing school for girls, so that engineering isn't so, I want them to understand what engineers do as a part of their second nature, right? We are everyone, we are so good at being consumers, but not necessarily producers. And so I want them to understand that engineers, civil engineers, mechanical, electrical, industrial, all those different things are interwoven in everything that you touch and do, right? Engineering is not just about tinkling inside of a computer. Um, now computers is going to be used at some point, but how did we get here? So the roads that we drive on, not just the computer part of a car, but then, so I want it to be so second nature to them so that when they are in those spaces as a employed corporate engineer, that it is that muscle is of doing that work is so second nature to them, because your parents probably haven't done it. Your auntie and them probably have not done it. And they are encouraging you on and they're saying, go, girl, go. But again, I went into a space shuttle and came home and no one can identify with what I'm doing. So I just didn't talk about it. Right. Um, when you're having conversations about those meetings, they don't understand. Yes, they can be professionals and they can be business leaders, but they are not engineers. And there's just a different type of atmosphere that we experience when we are doing what we do. And so I am very interested in getting our girls, particularly, into that environment earlier on so that they automatically know there is not such a shift for them, right? And I say that, like I said, I just got a new car, and when I sit in it, yes, I know how to drive. Some people say I don't, but anyway, but where the blinkers, where's the volume for, the music, all of that is second nature in the car I was driving before. And I love my new car, but I'm so frustrated with it because I'm so fearful I might have an accident in it, because I'm like, oh no, it's not there. It's all these things that memory isn't there. And I drive both cars. So I'm constantly switching. It's like code switching, right? And so these girls are going to be code switching. And if you don't start using that muscle memory of speaking, and it's not even speaking engineering, it's all those different microaggressions we deal with, right? I love your hair, but that's not hair they're going to see. And while we're not talking, we will end up not talking about programming or the business. And you walk in from having your hair flat iron one day to the next day, a blowout, a twist out, and they're just looking and they don't say anything, but they're looking. And that look, it either can fuel you and make you stand up straighter, like, say something, or I know what you're thinking, or it can make you go like, oh my God, I shouldn't have done it. And those are the kind of muscle memories and experiences we need to have those girls prepared for. Because I want them to, walk in like, yeah, I did it.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's start that meeting and don't feel very conscious, because those are the kind of things, and when you're talking about the holistic person, those are the kind of things that distract you. And You are no longer focused on the email you need to send. You're no longer focusing on the analysis you need to complete. And you are making silly mistakes. And then now you are substantiating that you're not supposed to be there. Now, look, she made this silly mistake because they're waiting. You
Yeah.
know, the haters out there waiting for you to do the smallest slip up. And then you're frustrated and then you go home and you can't talk about it to anybody because no one gets it. Mom and them may be a teacher at, and so everyone understands education. Everyone understands K through 12 education and stuff. We can easily relate to that, but they don't understand what it's like to walk into a building and you're the only one. They don't understand that. And I tell the girls, you're at Spelman and it's the land of beautiful, smart women. And then you go to your engineering school and it's still some beautiful, smart women around, but we're kind of diluted, but it's enough to sustain you, right? And then you go off to work and there may be some some that look like you, but they're in the business aspect, they're in the customer service aspect. And then if you have others that are in engineering, okay, great, rare, but it's great. And then when you go further up that ladder, there's nobody. It's nobody. And so I experienced that early on. I was, again, this wonderful job that fresh out of college. And I was in Jamaica with my manager, who was white, French Canadian male, older, and we were at a dinner, about 7 of us, and in Jamaica. So you think microaggression is not a thing, but it was by a Black woman. We're at dinner, taking our client out to dinner, all men, say 7 men and little old me, fresh out of school. And the waitress is taking everyone's order and she skips over me. And I look at my manager, Louis Morin, I remember him, and I say, what's up? And he goes, oh, mademoiselle. In his French accent, he said, oh, she thinks you are, how do you say it? A prostitute.
Oh,
And
that's
so
crazy.
she could not fathom that this young girl was at the table for any reason other than being a woman, a working woman of the night. And so it is not just others. It is just, you are such a unicorn that people can't even imagine that you are in the spaces that you are because you are so intelligent and, talented. And it's not even just that we're so intelligent and talented, but we took on a task that someone else said no to. We
Mhm.
are in a space that a lot of people just haven't ventured into for whatever reason. And here we are, we did it, we achieved it, and we deserve to be here, but it's not always comfortable.
Like, I want to talk on the fact that I didn't go to Spelman. I went to Kennesaw State, which is PWI. And
Sure.
even before that, when my introduction into like technology, we had a career academy, we went to a career academy, and I went through that.
Right.
And when I started, it was me and one other girl, and
Right.
she dropped it, and I continued throughout the program. So I will say, being the only one forced me to be confident. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have any of the computer skills that these other guys had. Like, they were doing it. They knew Linux. They knew how to set up computers real easily. I didn't know nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting in the class. I'm taking my notes. And I'm just like, I have to be able to understand this because when I went through the classroom, I had those feelings of like I belong here.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got around them, there was this little inkling where it's just like, do I really belong here? Like
Right.
there's no one else that looks like me
Mm-hmm.
in here, like at all. So that was one of the things where it forced me to be confident, forced me to learn the information. Like I enjoyed it as well. And it's like as I went through, I will say that
Mm-hmm.
prepared me for the real world in a way
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't surrounded by a lot of women to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know you since you went through Spelman and like
Mm-hmm.
you're helping girls who are surrounded by a lot of women, do you see the differences in like attitudes and energies? for when they actually do go out into the field and they come back to you and they're just like, "Ooh, I don't know if this is it or if this is it for me." Like, do you see the energy shifts?
I'll say this. So, I don't think the energy shift, I think is much like what you're saying, that they are like, okay, when they have that awakening, that epiphany that we're so rare. And then it's often about, okay, let's get more people in the field, right? Um, I had a PWI experience. I remember this guy. I was walking through the computer, not a computer, but the student center. And he said, Renee, did you get an A on that test? And I said, why? He said, because if you got an A, then my A is not an A. And it was that
Or,
whole
or
yeah. So God bless my rambling Rex. I feel like my PWI experience felt more like work because I didn't feel Renee, this is my experience. I didn't feel like it was so much of, hey, let's do this together. And so it was tougher. So I love the fact that your PWI made you stronger in that you're like, okay, I got to be even more confident. I will say, I don't know how so you say, do they feel like there's a shift for them? I think there's a shift in that they want to bring more up. That's my experience of just talking to other sisters who went through it. But I will say, I think what I like about what you're saying about the PWI is that you had that reality happen to you, smack you in the face a lot earlier. I have said, and I'll go on record saying it, I do feel like that being at HBCU is such a false sense of reality because that's our Wakanda and the world is not Wakanda. But we need it. It gives you a time. I describe it as a time where you can rest and focus on developing yourself and not focus on having to fight, right? It's a time so we don't have to explain the hair and all those microaggressions for it gives you, it kind of lulls you, but you have to be lulled with the understanding that I'm getting ready and built up for the outside world. Don't fall asleep in that lulling and thinking, oh, this is how it all is. And so that's why I talk so heavily with the girls and saying, I love that you are feeling, you're feeling stronger and taller and everything. You're like, yeah, I can do it. Yes, keep that up. When you are not just in the confines of being within others who look like you, keep that same energy when you're outside there, because that's what it's going to look like. And I want you to go out there and not get distracted by the fact that your hair is flat one day, you got it flat iron one day, and it's poofy the next, and they're reacting to it. And so that's a part of, like I said, wanting it to be that muscle memory of not getting distracted by others and what they're going through and they're not understanding.
Yeah, I like that because it does take a strong mind. Because honestly, there would be times where I get comments that hasn't happened like at where I'm at now, but on my transition up to like the tech
Hmm.
role, I would get random comments, and I honestly just one minute I talk about it, and the next minute's gone. It's like it's not gonna stop me from achieving my overall goal. It's not gonna stop me
Right.
from going through and like working on my mission. So I do think like your idea with like a finishing school, at least like a STEM career readiness for the real world in a
Hmm.
way, that
Hmm.
it will be so beneficial to have because sometimes like my parents would tell me, my parents like made me extra confident. Like they
I
were
love it.
they instilled a lot of confidence in me, and I honestly do think that's what helped me once I got through those classes where it's like I have to learn what I need to learn because this is what I want to do, but I'm not gonna
Right.
let other people get in my way.
Right.
So I really do think that's a good idea to have the sustainability piece because once you
Hmm.
get here, it's I wouldn't say it's extremely hard to stay as a Black woman. I wouldn't say that. It's just, it depends on your mental toughness and how much you can handle.
It's your mental toughness, and it is so much that you don't know until you know, until you don't know, until it's brought before you. And I just want women to talk more about the mechanics of being a professional woman. So even when it comes to family dynamics, and God bless all the stay-at-home dads and everything, but what we can do that they will never be able to do is to actually carry that baby, right? So even if we tag team and I do the pregnancy thing and then baby's here, then you take on leaving your career and whatever, whether it's having the baby cared for by a loved one, going to daycare, a nanny, whatever, our bodies change. And so we're the ones who we already dealing with the microaggression of the hair. We're dealing with the microaggression of our skin. We're dealing with the microaggressions about our music, our culture, what we're dressing. But there are microaggressions about our body transforming as we're carrying babies. And so again, what I was doing when I was working for BTG, I couldn't have done that as a pregnant woman, right? And when I say that, I don't think I shared this. So not only were all my customers overseas, okay, fine, well, what happens when Renee is 8 months pregnant? She's still going to go to an assignment in Jamaica. She's going to go to an assignment in Australia. She's going to be on a plane all that long. Also, being that we were in the bauxite industry, everything that all of our products were on these vats. So much like a water tower that you see, a lot of towns have those large water towers. That's about the height of our vats that was cleaning this bauxite. Bauxite is an ore, and so these orange rocks, and it was the solution that our sensors were in was really high temperature, like hot, hot, hot. And so even just being on site, if you're on site, application and product support engineer, and you have to be on site, I can't climb the ladder. I'm pregnant, right? And so with that particular assignment, it was my manager and myself. We were the team. We were the bauxite sludge team. So if I can't go, and that's my job, I don't have anyone to tag team and say, okay, you go. So those are the kind of things that women have to make decisions about. And so again, having those kind of conversations of being able to negotiate and navigate your body changing, and yet you're still able to do the job, or what does it look like doing the job, and not feeling like, okay, well, I have to put my career on hold, or I have to put having my family on hold, and your biological clock and your husband or your partner is saying, well, when we're going to do this, and you're just like, but wait, I'm trying to climb the corporate ladder and all this stuff. All those things we need to talk about. And so, again, not knocking any other career, but those are just very unique experiences in that when your body and you're doing something, not necessarily physical work every day, but you need to be able to physically perform as an application and product support engineer and climb a ladder. Those things impact you. So knowing how to stand tall and navigate that conversation with your management or with your team or with your family, the girls need to know all of that.
That can definitely help with like the planning aspect of it too. Like that would really come in handy. I know we're crunched for time at this moment, so I do want to step into your 3 to 5 tips that you have that can help someone get to where you are. Like, do you have any advice for us?
I do. I would say yes, be open. Don't I tell my daughter, oh God bless. I tell her all the time to be open to considering what someone is telling you may be helpful. You don't know all the answers. I know for sure me humbling myself and just going, okay, my mom said be an engineer, go. And it doesn't have to be that extreme. You can challenge it, but consider what they're saying. But this is going to sound contradictory. Another tip is to thine own self be true. So after you have taken in that information, again, because you are a 1%er, you are 1% of all the engineers earning a bachelor at this moment in time. No, very few people who are advising you probably have not done that, right? And so as you're taking on information and from others about your career, about your family, about you yourself, taking their information, but realize ultimately it's for you. And even especially when it comes to your personal affairs, because no one should ever know everything about you, especially your family dynamics. So they don't have all the inputs. So you can take in their information, but ultimately make sure that after you've assessed what they've done, what they've said, that you make sure that decision is for you. Um, and then get comfortable in making, he's like, okay, I heard you, but this is what I'm going to do. And you stand strong in your decisions and affirmations that you're not hurting anyone, but I need to do it this way. And definitely, definitely, definitely have your at bat music. You have got to have something that's going to hype you up. Okay. It is not the newest song or whatever, but I tell you, gonna have a good day. Nappy Roots, put it on, and I'm like, okay, I'm not sure, all right, say not today. But yes, all this, we talk all this STEM talk, engineering and everything, but at the end of the day and every day, at the essence of everything, we're people. And you have to feed into yourself in some kind of way. And I love a good at bat song. And, and it just like, it really does transform me. So that's another step. Always have something that's going to hype you up.
That's some good advice. Like I was just telling my boyfriend that it's the energy that you give yourself first, and then you can carry that
Right.
throughout the day. So having that hype music, or something that immediately motivates you, just having like a
Right.
go-to. Like I even have like a go-to like playlist. I know if I listen to this, it's gonna motivate me for the day, and I'll be ready.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, moving into the last thing. What is a motivating or insightful quote that you can provide to those listening to kind of wrap up the podcast, end on a good note?
A motivating quote. I guess I'm gonna have to repeat myself, and that's to thine own self be true. You know, be good to others, be great to yourself, and all will be well. Don't sweat the small stuff, man. Don't sweat it. It's gonna work out. Don't know how sometimes, but God has a plan.
I appreciate you for coming onto the podcast. It's been great having you on. And if you're okay, I can add your LinkedIn in the show notes.
Absolutely.
All right,
Yes.
all right.
Yes.
I'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes. So thank you guys for tuning in to the Be Insightful in Technology podcast to gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be insightful in technology.
Thank you for having me here.
Mm-hmm. It's been fun.
Bye.